Yeah, and it also makes me think of something else Henry Ford said, and I'll paraphrase again. Uh, he said, any as long as we look to the government to, um, as long as we look to government legislation to end poverty and inequality, um, poverty and inequality will always be with us and continue to grow. Something along those lines. One of the greats that walked the planet. So, feel free to go look that up and see exactly what he said. But that was the point he was trying to make. And, so many greats throughout history have pointed these things out, that, like, if you're counting on government to do it, that's like government and the law, like, that's the minimum standard. It's not that, and that's all it's ever meant to be. Like, we don't really want to be living in a society where we are counting the laws like the highest standard. Like, that's no, and laws can't do that. They're meant to be a minimum standard, and, like, we're the ones who have to live by the highest standards, and that takes character. But again, if we want things to change, and I'm quoting one of the greats from history, Jim Rohn, and one of my mentors always points this out, Jack Canfield. Like, if we want things to change, we have to change. If we want things to get better, we have to get better. Like, it's really not that. It's not as complicated as government wants to make it. So, but getting back to growing the wealth gap with these kinds of policies and directives, the way it grows the wealth gap is it strips opportunity and freedom out of the marketplace. And when you strip opportunity and freedom out of a market, any market, that consolidates the opportunities to a smaller and smaller and continually smaller number of percentage of the population. And it's there it is. We just solved the mystery of why is the wealth gap growing, because we're for the last few decades now, we've continually been stripping out these freedoms out of the marketplace. And am I saying that we didn't need improvement? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we relied on the wrong source to provide that improvement, which was the government. Like, guys, we were supposed to do the improvement as individuals, as as investors, as landlords, as business owners. Like, we have to, don't wait for a law. This idea that our current economic system, it all changed in the early 70s with a man named Milton Friedman. And we've experimented with his idea now, and it's a failure. We can see that. But his idea was shareholder supremacy, and that the idea he gave us was that corporations, their number one responsibility is to maximize shareholder profit within the bounds of the law. Horrible idea. I'm not sure how that got missed, that's a horrible idea. But now here we are, 4 or 5 decades later. Oh, yeah, that was a really bad idea. This is where we find ourselves. And so, but as these negative effects of that philosophy started unfolding in the marketplace, people noticed, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, greed is running things. Corporations are making record profits, but they lay people off. CEOs do really bad things, and they get to retire with all the, with a benefits package of millions of dollars. But, thousands of people lost everything they had because of their decisions. So we're seeing these things happen, and we're going, oh my God, we got to put some laws in place. Well, my point again is like, stop waiting for that. The law is the minimum standard. And if we're going to keep living by the minimum standard, we're going to keep seeing our economy and our civilization have more and more turmoil and deteriorate. So the less freedom, but our answer was to like strip some of the freedoms out of the marketplace, and understandably so, because if people aren't going to take the initiative to live on to a higher level and think on a higher level, then I understand why people want to step in, but unfortunately that's the lazy thinking. Instead of using your influence to suggest and promote different ideas. Milton Friedman, when he changed the way corporate America worked, he didn't put in a law. He wasn't a politician. He was an economist. And so he put out an idea and it caught hold, right? Like, this is how it's supposed to work. If you have something to say, think through it and craft it out really well and introduce that, start that conversation. Don't wait around for a law to take place, because when that happens, the more freedoms that get stripped away, the less opportunity there is, the more it consolidates opportunity for a smaller percentage of the population, and that grows the wealth gap. And it becomes harder and harder when there's less opportunity in a marketplace, because there's less freedom in a marketplace. That makes it harder and harder for people to break themselves out of paycheck to paycheck, or break themselves out of poverty. And it pushes more people into that. And look, if you think I'm wrong, then explain to me how the most successful, productive economy in the history of human civilization became that way. It was through freedom, and it was through freedom of the market. Like, that's it. And as those freedoms have gotten stripped away from the market, interestingly, our prosperity level has dropped, and the wealth gap's grown. So and we're moving towards this idea of take from the rich and give to the poor, like it's some kind of fantasy Robin Hood story. And by the way, Robin Hood didn't rob from the rich and give to the poor. He robbed the government, because the government had put so many stupid laws in place that it stripped the freedom out of the marketplace, and the only people who prospered were people in power. And so he robbed from them and gave to the poor people, which was all the common folk, right? All the citizens. So, let's just take the fog off of that fantasy story right there. He wasn't robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. He was robbing from the government. So, as we've lost freedom in our marketplace, our prosperity level has dropped, and the wealth gap has grown. So that's the thing that ticks me off about it is, we're moving towards this idea of more regulation, more taxes, and more laws, more just all that, more directives, more mandates, more big government and big law. And then, we can't figure out why the wealth gap's growing, because there's less opportunity in the market. That's it. This isn't, it really isn't that. I know the powers that be want to make it sound difficult because they want to confuse people, but it's really like, once you turn that noise off and start looking at it and looking at how our economy's deteriorated, it becomes real clear. It's tied, prosperity is tied to freedom. The most prosperous nation in all of human history also happened to be the most free nation in all of human history. I wonder what the correlation there is. Like, it's not right. And as our freedoms have been stripped away and we're moving towards this idea of, the government can regulate everything. Yeah, that, that's called communism. That's Russia, that's China. There's less prosperity, you know, but oh, well, China's catching up to us. Yeah, because we're playing our game really poorly. Like, they could never touch us if we went back to playing our game by the rules we used to have, which is more freedom in the marketplace will win every time. Every time, less freedom in the marketplace will never be able to, so we're going the opposite direction. We actually need to decrease. And that sounds really scary, but look around. The most prosperous economy ever, the most prosperous people ever, it was because we've had the most freedom out of any nation ever. And those freedoms are being taken away. And what do you know? Poverty's increasing, wealth gaps increasing, opportunities going down, and the idea of communism is catching up because they're playing communism at the A level, China, and they have a lot of smart people and they play that game really well. The only reason they're catching is because we're not playing at our A level. We're probably at a D minus or a D plus, C minus. So, and we're still beaten. Like, our system's still better, but like, guys, let's get over this. And by the way, like, it, the people who come up with these laws and govern us, are they not molded from the same clay as us? Are they immune from the follies of being human, which is, the desire to control and manipulate, and the folly of, looking out for yourself when push comes to shove? They're not. They're molded from the same clay. Why do we turn these kind of ideas over to them? They're no better than us, right? They're not our finest. Do the finest among us aggressively and violently attack people? Do the finest among us disregard all the principles of communication and engage in us against them? Is this what the finest among us do? No. The finest among us have always, and the greatest teachers who've ever walked the planet have always promoted true freedom. And that is the best possible scenario for prosperity among the human race.